welcome back to Building the Boys. We now have issue 43 of Hachette's Build the Titanic, and we are still continuing work on our bridge section of the superstructure. And in this one, we will be fitting the bulkheads to the bridge. So the bridge is going to get some structure now. It's actually going to look like the little wheel room. We also get a very large LED strip in this one, but in this LED strip are more ports of some of our plugs, so we're going to get an idea where some of this stuff's going to plug into. We are going to run in a test again, so you're going to need your test board on the LED lights. It is asking us to test the navigation lights. I've already done that. I've tested my navigation lights in the last issue. You can see they worked, so I'm happy with that. And then at the end of this one, if you are sticking around for our Titanic talk, we're going to be talking about a musical pig. A musical pig, and that's weird, right? What has a musical pig got to do with the Titanic? Quite a lot, actually. So we will be stick around for that one if you want to hear a weird story. Let's get into this. Let's get this one open. I don't think this one's going to take very long. I think this is going to be, from what I can see, that might be famous last words. From what I can see, this one's going to be a fairly quick one. So let's get into it. Let's get this one done. Okay, so we're fitting two bulkheads. Now, I've put one in already. Test fitted this to see what the fit is. It's so bloody tight, I don't want to pull that back out because I'm worried I'll break it if I do. So we've got our first one in, and then what we're doing with our second one is we're just making a mirror image. This is going to, so you've got the holes here, here, and here. They say test fit it and then glue if you're happy with it. The test fit's that snug. I don't think you need to glue. I really don't. Once you actually get the holes lined up, it's a really snug fit. But we get that popped in there. This one's going to need some glue, I think, because this one feels a lot looser. But that's where we're going to go. So I'm going to glue this one up and pop that one in. But that is what our two bulkheads will look like when they're in place. Okay, so I have our two large bulkheads, and we're going to put small bulkheads in next. Now, this shelf here goes towards the bow of the ship. Sorry, the stern of the ship, excuse me. And we're going to pop that one in there. So use the shelf as your kind of guide where this is going to go. This should pop down in there. He says. So what's going on with this? I'm very conscious of pushing too hard on these because what I don't want to do is snap the pins. So I'm trying to do this so I can film it, but I don't want to. I actually don't want to break my model in the process. It's very snug, very, very snug. So that's where that one's going to go. I'm going to straighten that out in a second. And the second one is going to go adjacent to it. So that's going to fit in here. And again, you look at those holes. That's going to push down into there. So you can see the pins. I've not got that right the way down, but I will. So I'm going to push those in. I'm going to be gentle with them because what I don't want, like I said, I don't want to snap these pins. I want to get this nice and close to my face so I can see what I'm doing. But that is where your bulkheads are going to go. We will straighten these out, as I said. And then we'll take a look. So we have our bulkheads in place there. I've straightened them up, pushed them down. Now, the next part that's going to go on, I can imagine is going to upset a few people because it's called the lamps. It's lamps, and it's lamps that are going to go on top of here and on top of here. They're not going to work. These are just plastic details that they are not going to work as lamps, which I know is going to make people go, oh, I want a lamp. Okay, fit a lamp then. You're going to need nano LEDs to do it, but I think that's overkill for me because the one thing they do know about modelling is the temptation to absolutely flood something with light is there. Doesn't necessarily mean it looks aesthetically good. So you don't need this. This would be weird, I think, if you lit these, but it's up to you, each their own. So the lamps are just going to go in here and one in here as well. There is no reason to light these. I mean, you can if you want to. If you want to get nano LEDs and you know, screw these in and do what you want to do, then you do it, you know. But that's the lamps in there. So that's looking really rather lovely, I think. The next thing we're going to do is the circuit board. So we have this wire here and this circuit board here. Now this has, you can see, other things going to plug into this. So these yellow spots are all LEDs. So these are LEDs that are going to go in here. But then ultimately, this is going to be able to have other wires plugged into it. I would imagine the navigation lights are going to plug it. So let's get that ready for prep. Okay, so taking our board, it's got the corner cut out, so it can only go in one way. You try and put it another way, you're going to have problems. So this should, hopefully, slot in. We will persuade that one to move. You will go in, sir. I really don't want to push down on this because I don't want to snap the board. There we go. So that's that one in. Snug as you like. So that's in. Now, we'll do a little bit of wire into this, I believe. That's in, so... yeah, we're going to wire... I think we're going to plug these wires in, and then we use the other wire as well. So let me find out where everything's going, and we get that done. So the first thing we'll do is plug our navigation lights in. Now, L... so there you go, there's wire L there, is going to go to J1, which is there. So that should just plug and play, hopefully. Which way around are we going? That way around. Christ alive. What am I doing wrong here? I'm just being a goon. There we go. I was just being a goon. There you go. So that's that one in. And then M goes to J2, which is over here. So again, I'll try and do this with minimal goonery this time. Right. There we go. Straight in. So that's how you now look in. I believe we can test this one. So, yeah. We're going to take our wire and our test board. Where is our test board? There's our test board. Okay. So let's wire up this to this. Let's make sure that's going the right way. No. Right. So, again, be conscious of this. Are they both Z? They're both Z. It doesn't bloody matter. They're saying be conscious of Z. They're both bloody same. Right, so that one in there. And then this one into J4. So this is to test this. I'm going to pop this one in here. There we go. So if those lit there, you can see we've got our green light there, we've got our red light there. Happy. There you go, that's all working. Okay, good. So you've got some illumination of the superstructure. There's no bleed coming through there. That's nice, that's a good thing. There we go. So that is that wiring complete. And I think that will be all for this part. Let me check. Test each navigation lights building the first. You don't have to do that. They're already tested. They're working. Excellent. That is it. So that is it. We do have two parts with this that aren't fitted in this stage, and I'll show you what those are. So we have these two pieces here that haven't been fitted yet. So those are surplus to requirement for now. They might go in the next issue. But that is everything you have to do in this stage, and that is us complete. Let's have a chat about musical pigs. That's it. That's that one done. Very little to do in that one, but it makes an impact. We can sort of see the wheelhouse forming now. We've got those two bulkheads in. We're getting some structure to the outer decking. It's nice, looking nice. The LED strip works nice with no light bleed coming up from the bottom. That's a beautiful thing. We're happy about that. Now, when it comes to lights and light bleed and things like that, particularly with those lamps I spoke about, and Temptations Group, well, they're lamps, they should light up. Okay, I see what you're saying, but again, this is key. You're never going to have a model that is completely accurate to the ship. You can get as accurate as you want it to be, but there's something else that needs to be taken into account that sometimes isn't, and that is what is aesthetically pleasing. What looks good to the eye is another part of it. Now, just because that light, you can make that light up, doesn't mean it's going to look good when it is lit up, because it might detract from the two navigation lights on the side if there's another light on top of it. Aesthetically, it might not look good. It's kind of like the idea of I want every single portal lit up. Would they have been? Would they have been? I mean, some of those portals were in rooms where people wouldn't have had the lights on. So it's kind of like a skyscraper. You're never going to see a skyscraper with every single light lit. You're not. There's certain floors won't have the lights on. Certain rooms won't have the lights on. So it's what's aesthetically pleasing, not just what's historically accurate. What's aesthetically pleasing, because it's kind of like a lot of people ask about people for the ship. You could, I mean, you could put, you know, a couple of hundred very small people on deck, but would it look good? If it was absolutely littered in people, would it look good? I don't think it would. I think it would be a distraction, and it's that. But it's your model, you know, it's yours. So you do what you want to do. If you want to light those, well, you go ahead and you light them. If you're thinking, oh, I'm actually all right with it not being lit, then that's okay as well. Don't let anyone press you into thinking, well, you've done it wrong if you don't install nano LED. That's nonsense. It's your model. You want to paint this thing leopard skin, you go for it. It's yours. You pay for it, so you do what you want to do with it. It really is that simple. And don't listen to anyone else. Don't listen to anyone else. If you are going for the most accurate model you can get, well, you know, I mean, this thing's not gonna, it's not gonna float. You know, I mean, there's that. But it's looking nice, and these little details I think are lovely. We're gonna lose them because we're gonna be putting a roof on that wheelhouse. So to sort of get in there and see it is not gonna be the easiest thing to do. But we know it's there, and that's what matters. But it looks lovely. If you're just stopping by for the instructions, thank you for stopping by. If you are hanging around for our conversation, we'll come to that. But yeah, if you're just here with the instructions, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for stopping by. And for the rest of us, we're going to talk about Musical Pig. And I think you're thinking, what Musical Pig? Well, this Musical Pig. Believe it or not, that absolute main troll of an object is a music box. It's not a real pig. It's not a taxidermied pig. It was a music box. It's weird, right? But it was. And it belonged to Emily Rosenbaum. Now, she was returning from Paris where she'd been on a fashion assignment. So this wasn't a child, this was a woman. This was a young woman. And this was her lucky pig. It's lucky enough she took it to Paris with her. And she was given this as a gift. She was in a car accident when she was slightly younger with a German gentleman who sadly lost his life. And she was bought this by her mother as a get well gift. And it became her lucky pig. She never really said why it was lucky. She just called it her lucky pig. Okay. You might tell from my tone I've got a bit of an issue with the pig, because I do have I've got an issue with the pig, and I'll come to that. She refused to get on a boat, would not get on a lifeboat without the pig. This is one story. So when she heard that the ship was going to sink, Miss Rosenbaum began to lock her trunks because she was worried someone's going to steal from her. And this is where we are with it. Now, I've said before that there's this thing in the movies that the upper class passengers acted kind of scummy, whereas most eyewitness testimony doesn't attribute that. Most eyewitness testimony says that upper class treated third class as equals when it came to evacuating the boat. There was no kind of, I'm sure there were incidents of it, and this I think is one of them. If you want to know what privilege is, it's a mechanical pig that plays music on board the Titanic, because she refused. So she's told the Titanic's sinking, so her priority is, I'll lock all my trunks, no one can steal from me. Let's go into the bottom of the ocean, my lovely. You know, so unless those are watertight boxes, which they're not, it's irrelevant. But no. You wait whilst I do this, and that's what happens. So she locks all of her trunks and gets onto a lifeboat. This is one version of the story. That's key. Gets onto the lifeboat, realises she's left her lucky pig, gets out of the lifeboat, and asks them to wait while she goes to retrieve her musical pig. And by all accounts, they did. Now, what kind of world is it where, no, we'll just further risk the lives of the 40 people in the lifeboat and stop anyone else from getting into what appears to be an empty space in the lifeboat because you want to go back to a cabin to fetch something as chintzy as a musical pig. But that's what she did. So she ran back and collected her musical pig, came back, got in the lifeboat, and off she went. Now, legend has it that she played the music of the musical pig to amuse the children that were in the lifeboat that were scared at the time. And you hear that part of it and you think, well, that's quite sweet. But then you look at it and think, well, if that's even true, because there are other accounts of Miss Rosenbaum and her pig where she was holding it like it was a baby. So the thing was sort of swaddled, and she's holding it like it's a baby. So there are people that believe that the actual origins of the pig was used wrapped up in a blanket as a prop to secure a place on a lifeboat. And I'm not saying that did or didn't happen, but there is a belief that that's potentially what happened. The people who saw her carrying the pig claim they saw it as she was carrying like it was a baby swaddled. Another version of the story, which she told herself, and she told this in a televised interview in 1970, is that she was wandering around in a daze, and she already had the pig in her arms, and she was just wandering around thinking, oh, well, this is how I die. And a sailor shouted at her, hey, you, don't you want to be saved? Grabbed the baby that he thought was a baby, took the baby off her, and threw it into the lifeboat. And she said that was the spirit of her mother telling her to get on board the lifeboat. So she followed the pig in. Now, no one else has that version of the story except Miss Rosenbaum. Everyone else has a version of her getting out the lifeboat and running back to rescue this bloody pig. Now, the irony of this is the fact that not all of the babies and children were saved. They didn't all have a place on a lifeboat, but there was enough room for a bloody great big musical pig, which I think, again, is an air of privilege. Because somebody at that point, regardless of station, should have said, forget your pig, get the pig out the boat, we can put a child in there where you've got this bloody great big pig, couldn't we? But it's what happened. But that is the bizarre story of Miss Rosenbaum's musical Pig. And if you'd like to go and see the pig, you can go and see the pig. The pig is in the Royal Greenwich Museum. So you can go and visit the musical Pig. Why you want to, I don't know. But you can definitely see that very weird piece of Titanic history in the musical Pig. It exists. It's still there. It's still relatively intact for something that is 111 years old now. But that's a very strange story of the musical Pig. So if you ever hear anyone talk about musical Pig on board the Titanic, this is what they're talking about. It wasn't a taxidermied animal. There's a popular belief that it used to be a real pig. It wasn't. It just looks very realistic, apart from the fact that it looks like someone's took a shovel to the front of his face. You know, the Tom and Jerry cartoons with someone smacking him with an iron, his face squashes up. That is a very flat-faced pig. But that is the story of Miss Rosenbaum's musical Pig, and an example of probably some of the privilege that was being displayed on board by some of the upper-class passengers. That's all for this one. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. Please remember to like and subscribe, and remember you can contact us at billandtheboys@outlook.com. We will be back very soon with issue 44 to close out the month. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice, and I will catch you on the next one.